Welcome to this month's Lunch and Learn with Terry, Francesca, and myself. We are excited to be here to talk about behavior and its applications to all of the different aspects of our personal and professional lives. Welcome, team. We're going to dig in on meetings today, meetings, projects, priorities. And before we do that, I want to turn it over. Francesca, could you just give us the quick rundown? You always do such a fantastic job with this. Quick rundown of the four elements, just in case we've got any new guests with us. What are the four elements? And the show is yours.
Absolutely. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening to everyone, depending on where you're coming to us in the world. So if you are new to this space and behavior elements is not something that you are currently aware of, we're so grateful to have you here. You'll know everything about it by the end of this call. But as a quick little Coles notes, so as we're diving into this, each of the elements with say the fire, when we talk about that, that's the drive to acquire. So we're going to talk about how that element sees the room, reads the room, kind of the energy that shows up, maybe some urgency, some speed, some action language versus water, the drive to bond. So maybe energy is going to show up a little bit more as attunement, a little bit more tone awareness, really empathetic to what the room is feeling and breathing as they observe all of that. Whereas the air, that's the drive to learn. Maybe energy is going to show up a little bit more as questions, ideas, brainstorming. And of course, with earth, we've got earth, that grounding element, the drive to defend. And that's going to be and more the energy showing up as caution, a little bit of structure. And each of these elements are so incredibly important. If you haven't already taken the behavior elements assessment, Jay or Terry are going to drop that link into the chat, or myself. One of the three of us are going to have that link into the chat. Please take the assessment. We'd love to be able to follow up with you and make sure that we can get you your full assessment to know what element you are. And back to you, Jay or Terry.
Awesome. All right, team. Let me ask you a question, and we're going to start it off just from your perspective, your elements. When you get a request for a meeting, when you get the calendar invite or whatever else, what goes through your brain? I'm curious. I know what goes through my brain. I'll share that in a minute, but I want to open it up to either of you. What is your immediate reaction? What's your thoughts? How does that process work for you?
It's always interesting for me because it's so situational. It depends on who wants to have a meeting. And I don't work in a corporate environment anymore, but I remember the old days when I did, you could always tell the people are like, dude, why are we meeting? This is going to be an email. We all know it's going to be an email. We're going to take 45 minutes. Come on, let's go do something meaningful. But I really like people that take the time and intentionally put an agenda together and then know how to stick to it. We can even discuss the agenda in advance. Oh, that is lovely. Like, we don't need to talk about this with everybody. This involves two people out of the 10. So, yeah, there's meetings can be so frustrating. All right, I've rambled enough. Francesca, what do you think about meetings?
Absolutely. Oh, Terry. Well, I come from a corporate space with a company I used to work with overseeing Western Canada, in the account executive and director role. So there was that aspect. They loved meetings, but they were so efficient with them, and it was wonderful to see how they were structured and really used it as a blueprint for myself for years to follow. But then when I got into the luxury development space for real estate development, working with a lot of males and males who are very, I would say high fire, high air. They're like what Terry said, this could be in a 4-second email. There's no need to meet. And so when I was overseeing a large scale development, 103 lots, a developer lived in Vancouver, and then myself and another director, we lived in the Okanagan, Western Canada, for any of you Michigan folks out there. But in the midst of that, I really wanted to show that there was a value to us meeting face to face. So I said to Ryan, I am going to get your meetings. I know that you've had meetings with realtors that have been way too long. I'm going to get them down to 15 minutes. I'm going to have an agenda, even with a 2-minute pleasantry at the very beginning, which was our joking way of saying, hi, good morning. Let's get to it. We got those meetings down to just about 9 to 9.5 minutes every single week. And he said it was his favorite part of the week because we were able to streamline it in such a way that it spoke to his fire, but he was able to feel that connection. So that's how I was able to kind of bring a little bit of my fire and water personally as my two core elements. But to answer your question, I actually love meetings because of my drive to bond, but I also recognize the immediacy of like, let's just get this over and done with. So, hey, maybe a meeting under 10 minutes is the happy medium. I don't know, but how about you, Jay?
Well, I love the distinction between, like, from Terry, it's just like, oh my God, I don't want to do this or anything else. But I would be willing to bet, and I'm going to kind of follow up on this. Terry, if this is a meeting that's scheduled and says, hey Terry, we're going to spend an hour, it's going to be brainstorm fest. All I want is ideation, generation. Are you in for that meeting? Yeah,
Harry's there.
right. Or and you know what? If it's one of those where it's like, "Hey Terry, we need to do a logistics meeting. I'm not scheduling 60 minutes. It's going to be 8 minutes long. We're going to power through it and we're going to get done with this and then we're going to move on with the rest of our day." That's going to feel a little different. I think that's what I'm hearing from you, Francesca, was your meeting had a strong purpose. It was limited to the tasks at hand. It was clear in the expectations with an agenda. As a fire element, I'm in. Even if it's a meeting that I don't want to do, if you're like, you're taking 10 minutes of my time, this is going to move our project forward, this is going to be this, and we're going to stay on task. Okay, I can dig that. When I get a meeting notice request on my calendar for 30 minutes, for 60 minutes, I delete it. No, no one is going to schedule that amount of time on my calendar without my express permission. And especially if there's not something on there that explicitly says, what is the purpose of this meeting? What are the outcomes that you want from this meeting? And what is my role in this meeting?
Mhm.
Because if my time, and I think that all of us really need to think about this. Time is your most precious resource. It's not money, it's not, it's not materials, it's time. It's the only thing at the end of life that we look back on and say, I wish I had more of, right? It's one of those things where when we think about the investment of our time, we should be protecting our own time and our team's time as though it is our bank accounts. So when I'm looking at that, to what you said, Francesca, I get a 9-minute or meeting request. All right, you've got my curiosity piqued because most of us schedule in quarters, halves, and full hours. So you send me a 9-minute meeting notice, I'm going to be intrigued enough to show up to that meeting. And I think it's just something that, like, when we see those different pieces, yeah, that would bring me a little bit of safety and security to say, I'm in for that. Go ahead, Francesca.
Oh, and I just wanted to add this because I hope it'll make you laugh. I had a caveat to Ryan and Bill that if they felt the meeting had zero value by the 4-minute mark, they were allowed to just log out without any notice. And it kept me on my toes to make sure that meeting by the 3-minute mark was on their toes, gave them enough information. They always stayed on, obviously, but it kept me accountable. Oh my gosh. And they loved it too.
I would have loved that because at least for the first couple of meetings, I would have had my finger on the end button just waiting for it to happen. Like, go ahead. Go ahead, punk. Make my day. I love it.
That flexibility right there makes it so fun. Yeah, I'm in for that all day long. If any one of us around the room could just go, I'm out, and no problems, no issues, no conversation after, yes, please. Yeah, meetings as a rule kind of suck, and we don't do them right. And so rethinking how they're done and who's involved and why does people have to sit there for an hour when their part of that meeting's worth about 7 minutes? Like it's so goofy to me. It's so goofy.
We
So
got to give ourselves some grace too, though, because I'm sure Jay, you've had this, and Terry, I don't know about you, but I know I've had this. I have the capability of leading phenomenally, like, concise meetings, but I've also been the person that I've enjoyed the meeting. It's when the full hour, and obviously different context, but I'm sure we've all been there that we're like, okay, that could have been a 10-minute meeting, but we've dragged it on. So we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace.
Absolutely. But I think that, and what you had said earlier, so we just implemented something at COIAS called the First Friday Fun. It is optional. You don't have to come to it, but it is 1 hour that is scheduled just for interaction, team building, bonding, and everything else. We're investing 1 full hour of the workday weekly for the team to come together. Now, they can ask each other questions. They can go to a breakout session. Sometimes we're going to have some exploratory questions, or somebody's going to come in and give us a quick presentation on what they were really proud of this week or something like that. But it's really just about connection. And I think we all need that connection, that drive to bond, even if that's our lowest drive. So I think where it gets blurred, and what I loved what you were talking about, Francesca, was the division of the two things. Here's the 9 minutes that we need to be dialed in and get the job done, get the productivity going. That's going to appeal to the earth, the fires. We've got structure, we've got a system, we've got everything else. The next 8 to 10 minutes is all going to be about brainstorming. Okay, well, now I know that if I'm in there and that's my joy or that's my jam, we've got a space to do that. But I think what Terry said is also really wise. One of the ways that our Friday leadership team meetings had occurred, they were going 3 hours long. And it was part of it was fun and we were enjoying each other's company. And then we get into a topic and then we would discuss and then we would do whatever. But then we started to put tactics into place. And one of them is the segmentation tactic. And I want everybody to hear this because you can do this with your meetings. Let's say the three of us are meeting. Terry is all about Project A. Francesca is supporting on Project A, but mostly focused on Project B. I schedule a 30-minute meeting. The first 15 minutes is just Project A. The second 15 minutes is just Project B. At the end of 15 minutes, Terry, you're welcome to leave. We've concluded our discussion on Project A. So think about it this way, from a leadership team perspective, the first 10 minutes was all about, call it finance, because everybody needed to know that. Finance, you're dismissed. The second 10 minutes was all about HR, because everybody left needed to know about that. HR, you're dismissed. The next 10 minutes was all about operations. Operations gives its report, you're dismissed. Finally, the last one is strategy. Now that segmentation is the people that need to be in the room know what time they need to be in the room, and you can organize your meeting to make sure that you're segmenting and saving Terry 50 minutes of time, Francesca 40 minutes of time, operations 30 minutes of time, etc. So I love that segmentation technique, and I think it really aligns with what both of you are saying. Why am I here? Don't waste my time, and let's make sure that we're getting those pieces going together. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Absolutely.
So we got a question
My
for, oh, go ahead. Go
I
ahead,
was going
Terry.
to say real quick, my favorite part of this is it kind of flies in the face of this is how we've always done it. Companies and organizations do meetings because that's just what they've done. They've never sat down, looked at the efficacy and the point and the purpose and the usefulness. Forget about the cost and the ridiculousness of it, right? This is just how we've done it. So, yeah, right. Agile development teams and software moved into those 15-minute stand-up cadence where it was, what are you working on today? What roadblocks do you have that we can get off? How can we help you? All right, we're done with those three questions. See you later. They do that every single day and they make massive amounts of progress because they're not bored down in meetings all week long.
Yeah,
Mhm. I love
absolutely.
that point, Terry. And if I may add, there's one, major leader here in the Kelowna area. And he has, I want to say, like 60 people on his team. And what he does, because I think Richard ask in the team and the chat, like, how do you get this meeting mindset to take hold if your organization doesn't do it? And I know what Dan did because it was kind of like what Terry said. The organization did what they always did, and how he switched that was every single meeting that took place, he added up how much the meeting cost for the company, and then dialed in how much time they wanted to spend, so that way everyone's time was valued. But it does take a little bit of finessing for sure. I think it took them like 2 years to get it down to that level, and it's definitely not something that happens overnight. But what are your thoughts, Jay or Terry, based on what Richard said in the chat?
Yeah, I'm actually going to add into the chat right now for everybody a link for the meeting cost calculator. This is something that we've used, and actually, a very big company that had some pretty bad meeting practices where they would have nearly 60 to 70 people on a 2.5 hour meeting. And what we did was analyzed how many people spoke during that time, and it was about six of all of the people. We did a low average salary and realized that that meeting, which was occurring weekly, was costing in a range of about $11,000 of their time and energy and actual dollars of salary. So, well, how do we do, what do we do? What do we think about this? So that meeting calculator can be really powerful. I agree with you, Francesca. It's such a great way to say time is our most precious resource, and time is what creates the conditions for wealth, value, money, etc., revenue. So tracking it is a big piece. I think to Richard's point as well is if you feel this way about meetings, and we all feel this way about meetings, more than likely, that's a beautiful thing because you already probably have some level of motivation from the people, from the team, and from, hey, let's save because people want to save themselves time, energy, effort. They don't want to sit and waste it. They want to be productive. They want to do what they're going to do. So we already have a little bit of motivation towards this. We all know that meetings are a problem. Realistically, there's very few organizations that I've ever worked with, and I'm like, wow, your meetings are dialed in and they're productive and they're time efficient and I can't think of an organization that I've walked into that had flawless meeting culture, but they all wanted it. So, in part, Richard, I would say work with the fact that there's motivation. Take some of the tactics that you're going to hear today, whether that is having a structured agenda, telling people, "Hey, I want to shift our meeting culture. Are you in on this, Terry? Can we shift this? Are you open to having some conversations about how we can make this more effective?" Francesca, what are your thoughts on it? And literally start the conversation. I think you'll be surprised how quickly, because meeting culture is the sum of meeting behaviors. It is as simple as shifting the behaviors and you start to shift the culture. So, Terry, Francesca, thoughts on that?
I love it. And also, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Robert's Rules of Order. I know I am, and Jay is. I'm pretty sure Terry is as well. Anyone who's been part of the Junior Chamber International, it's something that we use across all sectors for meetings. But it's something that I brought into the meeting space to be able to get that meeting down to 9 minutes. And it's quite comical for someone from the outside looking and being like, I can't believe we're going, point of order or whatever. But some of those aspects can be very create some really great meeting habits as well in terms of what Jay was talking about with the meeting culture. I don't know what you feel, Terry, but
You can imagine how much I'm into formality, right? So as much as Robert's Rules of Order can be super effective and parliamentary procedure is a nice way to go, not everything has to be that. Ultimately, if you can take what's good in those different processes and programs and customize them to what works in your world. So you have a hybrid approach. That's where efficiency and relatability and usefulness and efficacy is gained for your organization. So, yes, look at what's out there, see what's available, and then strip away the stuff that doesn't apply to you and your team. And now you got the best of both worlds.
I'm
amen.
gonna piggyback off of that. I, as a low Earth, I do not love structure or overstructure or limitations, etc. And something like Robert's rules can feel initially as, well, this is just way too formal. This doesn't allow for innovation. Now, here's the other side of that. I love Robert's rules. But even in my own company or anything, it's not like we have these very formal meetings. Exactly what Terry had said. We've taken different parts of those pieces and implemented them. I just put a link into the chat. This is a Robert's Rules training that I did. It's got 27,000 views, which I was really surprised by because it's 2.5 hours long, but it's all about Robert's Rules and the different ways that we can apply it. So it is going into a little bit of the formality, but let me give one quick example of how we operationalize it. In Robert's Rules, there's a concept called referring to a committee. Say me, Terry, and Francesca are having a big debate on whether we choose vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream. And we're debating this out. Well, there's 3 of us and 10 of us others on the meeting or whatever that looks like. There's no reason to sit there and belabor it. We can refer that to a committee and say, hey, we're going to make a committee of Terry and Francesca. You seem to have the most knowledge about the flavors, flavor profile, the texture, and everything else. Why don't you two take this, work together, come up with a recommendation, and bring it back to the larger group and share with all of us what your recommendation is? That comes directly from Robert's Rules of Order, called a motion to move to committee, that now 10 of us that are sitting in the meeting don't have to listen to the entire debate because we don't have anything to contribute. There's nothing that's affecting us on it. Terry and Francesca can have this discussion and bring it back to the whole. That's a powerful way for me to save everybody time. If in the middle of a meeting I see there's a debate on technology, I say, all right, team, this sounds like a great discussion, but we need to move on with the rest of the agenda. Let's put this to a committee. We're going to have the IT person do this, the head of operations, and we're also going to have the implementation, the project manager. You 3 come up with a plan, bring it back to us next week. We'll vote on it and move forward. How much time and energy we just saved by referring that to committee for the 3 experts? Game changer. So
I love that.
let me ask this question. And I'm asking this because this is my experience. In a lot of meetings, one of the things I see is, okay, an idea is presented. I share my thoughts. Then Francesca shares her thoughts. Then Terry shares his thoughts. And then Alicia shares hers, and Caitlin shares hers, and Richard shares hers, which triggers my thought, and I go back to my original thought and reshare it again. Then, somebody else jumps in there, and so on and so on and so on down the line. And these conversations just get massive. And part of what I see often is we're all in agreement, or almost everybody is in agreement. It's just this need to say the same thing or reiterate or go over and over. How have you two handled that in any of the meetings that you've been in? When you see okay, we're all on the same page. Do we need to keep talking about this, or can we start taking action? Or are you comfortable with continuing that conversation and hearing everybody have that? Because I will tell you, fastest way for me to tune out is to have unanimity in the room and everybody have to speak to it. Like I'm done in that meeting. My brain is just going somewhere else.
Terry, do you want to go first?
Totally agree with Jay on that one. Yes. I don't care that you agree. I don't care that you thought it was great. We already agreed that it was good. That's why we brought it up. Let's not keep celebrating. Yeah. So identify, discuss, and solve. IDS. Gino Wickman wrote the book Traction. He came up with EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System. They have what they call level 10 meetings. There is a very specific timeline for each of the practices and pieces. And one of the rules in the IDS, identify, discuss, solve, is you could just put a thumbs up You don't have to go in and say how great it is. You can agree without verbalizing your agreement. Those pieces of the meeting are used for contrarian points of view, to bring in other angles, other ideas, other thoughts, other ways to look at something, not to double down on what's already been discussed. And so I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of the timeline, right? If you know we only have 10 minutes to identify, discuss, and solve a particular issue, well, then we're not going to spend 8 people talking about how much we agree with that idea. So that piece matters quite a bit.
Well said.
Francesca, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this? And I'm going to turn it to you two for just a second. I have to step away for just one moment, so I'll be right with you.
No problem. Yeah, I agree with you, Terry. And here's the interesting part is that I think that at least for me, I know I've fallen victim to that. There's been seasons or times where um I have been in my more of my water that's led, and I'm like, I'm celebrating why something's great. And even someone like Terry has held me accountable to go, but what are the pain points that you feel are not aligned? Because we understand that it's already awesome, but we want to know what's your actual perspective, because telling me that it's amazing and I'm in alignment isn't doing us any good. So just wanted to echo that, Terry. And it's something that no matter how good we can get at this, we still can fall victim to. And I know that I have, and that's the ownership I take. But aside from that, when I was in the director role with all the different executives across Canada, and we had our Western Canada division, Eastern, and so on and so forth. When we would come together in Vancouver to discuss and have meetings, if there's 14 to 15 different people around a boardroom table, it was something as simple as myself and 2 other directors implemented. If we're all in agreement, we go around and we simply raise our right hand and we go, I echo, I echo, I echo. If we felt we were all in agreement, so you were still identifying that each person still has a voice because they were able to say it out loud versus just all nodding our heads. So very similar to Terry's, like, hey, thumbs up. But I loved getting to see it in alignment. I echo around the table. And when someone came up to the point where they didn't, they said, I echo, but, and they would give the 3 points that they were concerned with. And we're like, okay. And then we go into discussion. There was no Robert's Rules of Order. However, it was so streamlined that we were able to get right to it. And around a massive boardroom table like that, you have to, or else you're there for hours. So that's how I've done that. And then in terms of smaller meetings, say with those 2 developers, it was very similar. I'd bring up a point. I'd say, here are the pain points that we're dealing with. Here's how Bill and I have addressed them. Do you echo? And they would both go, I echo, echo. And then we would move on to the next point. They know that we'll follow up via email. There's nothing more to discuss. And I don't know if you guys are in alignment with this, but I love this. Anytime you're going to a meeting, as much as I love hearing everyone's report of what they're doing, sending a proxy or like a board report in, or whatever that may be, whatever position you are, and that way it's a team's responsibility to look up what it is that you've done in the last week or whatever your report is. So that way in the meeting, you can say 2 bullet points to summarize it, but you're not going into a long in depth. So we can keep it to 1 to 2 minutes max in terms of your report versus 10 each. So that's my thought. How about you, Jay?
Yeah, we use the +1. So somebody doesn't have to reiterate or anything. It's just a straight +1. Yep, I'm in, or whatever that is to signal kind of agreement or alignment. But there was actually something that you said in your comment, Francesca, that I wanted to zero in on just for a second.
Okay.
Before I do, audience, what are your biggest meeting pet peeves? What are the things that frustrate you? What are your questions for how to address some of these challenges? Toss those into the chat. We will address each of those as we navigate the rest of our conversation, and we apply it to project teams too. So, Francesca, I think one of the things that I heard you say that I really loved was in your meetings, you would come in and say, here's what we learned, here's the 3 recommendations, and this is what we think that we should need to do. And I think that's so important because so often, and this has been my experience, and maybe you can comment on this if it's been your experience, an issue will come up in a meeting and people will try to figure it out right then and there rather than taking a step back, thinking it through, putting some research behind it, running to chat GPT, doing whatever it is to come up with some recommendations and then discussing the recommendations. It's
Mhm.
almost like there's somebody in the meeting and they've got they've got the football of problems and they throw the football into the room and just say, it's a grab bag, good luck. But there's no thought process that has gone into that. It's like now we're all trying to discover this together rather than here's the problem, here's my thoughts on it, here's what I've looked at so far. What do you think about the solution? Can you two comment on that? And I see the chat blowing up with some different pieces here, but go ahead.
Go ahead, Francesca.
Oh, of course. I would probably say first and foremost, I'm sure any of us can echo this. If we wanted to have a meeting about all the issues or problems that we see, we could have a 6 hour meeting on that. But that's not the point of having a meeting, of course. And I think too, there's almost like this polarity. And I think that when I was writing some notes about this session this morning, it's interesting because in terms of our fire, I think sometimes our fire, it's like we want to get to like what are the issues? How can we solve them? We want to finesse everything so we can get to our win. And with my water, it's so easy to be like, let's celebrate everyone. Let's make sure everyone's seen and heard. Do you feel valued? Do you feel seen? But we could also do a 6 hour meeting on that. So, I know that Jay does this with Coius. I know Terry echoes this and does this in his company. I know I've done this in the past, being able to have each person bring one rose, one thorn, however you want to characterize that, but one win and then one particular pain point. Of course, there's going to be many that will arise, but what we found specifically in the development world, because there would be 16 different fires going on at once, and we always knew that we had different things that we were dealing with. But in the meeting, we had already identified before the meeting even started, here are the pain points that we're dealing with, here are the solutions at hand, here are our wins for the week. When we're on this call, we will only be discussing this particular one because there's legal matters in place, or these are the different I don't know what you want to call it, different aspects that we're dealing with that are very timely. So it's more so picking one of the 16 things that we're dealing with. Here are three solutions. Do we need to discuss, or can we have a meeting offline? So I think just kind of dialing that in before the meeting, because if you just get on there and go, so here's all the problems, of course we're going to get into a big discussion, and that's just not necessary. So that's my thought process. Terry, what are your thoughts?
I think one of the things that matters most is frequency of the meeting and in consistency and cadence. And I don't know that we spend enough time allowing for what we set up to be changed and altered.
Yeah.
Right? We go into these ideas about we're going to have this 45-minute meeting and we're going to do it every Tuesday at 10 a.m. and it's going to be that way for the rest of the time and it blocks out your calendar for 17 years in a row. You can be wrong about that. It's okay to find out that that meeting needs to be 25 minutes, not 45 minutes, and it needs to take place every other Tuesday. And in months with a fifth Tuesday, it can happen the third time. That's what we really need to look at because we don't go back and reevaluate things as effectively as we could. And I really think that this is an opportunity for improvement. I agree with what Francesca said in terms of the structure, right? Rose and thorn, that's great language for it, right? I want to hear what's well and what's not in your world, preferably in your business world. But you know what? You're a 365 degree of a person, just like I am. So if you got some crap going on at home that is going to impact your work, I don't mind you sharing that because now I can give you the grace that you definitely deserve. If you're going through crap at home, you're gonna have it at work. Same thing if you're having crap at work, you're gonna have it at home. It would be amazing if we were more understanding and supportive of that, like I know Francesca is.
Yeah, I love that, Terry. And if I may add one aspect to that, to Terry's point, when I worked with a company called, I'm sure you're all familiar with Lululemon. It's a major company across, especially in Canada, very popular. When I worked with them, we would execute a one morning meeting every month at 6 a.m. And one of the things that you would have like 40 to 50 people there, but they would ask one question. And I don't know if this is across the sector of every Lululemon facility, but in the particular store that I was affiliated with, the manager that I worked with, and I'm still friends with her to this day, we would ask, does anyone have anything to clear? Out of the 50 people, not everyone would speak, but maybe two people would put their hand up and David would go, John, what? And he would go, I just want to let everyone know that my father's went into hospital. And we all go, I'm so sorry, John. We're not there to solve the problem, but he's letting us all know what he's dealing with. And after the meeting, we all have the invitation to go up to him and say, John, how can I support you? But he feels seen because he was able to clear that. Or Sarah's able to put her hand up and go, I am having a little bit of a difficulty of something that happened yesterday in the store, and I want to talk about it after the meeting. We see you, Sarah. We'll talk to you after. That was such an easy way for us to clear any energy that was lingering and get to the meeting. So, like what Terry said, that quick way of having everyone be seen and heard in such a powerful way, and just making sure that we still get to the agenda, but people still have that autonomy to speak up. So, Jay, welcome back. How about yourself? Is there Terry was talking about, we were both discussing, just the balance of having the structure, having all of this, but
Still
having that
making it human.
frequency in the meeting.
Yeah, and I think that what you said earlier, and you made a joke about the 2 minutes of pleasantries at the beginning. I think that even just hearing, like, hey, what do you need to clear? I think that's so important because in many cases, especially within remote work environments, meetings are the place that people are connecting with each other.
Mhm.
But this is where I also look at it and say, what is the purpose of the meeting? And I'm going to kind of relate this to one of the first things that Lisa said, an agenda but not structured meeting. For me, every agenda needs to have purpose, who's on it, and what are the outcomes that we're trying to get to. If our outcome for the meeting is to connect with each other, great. Schedule that time. I will focus and dial in on connection, asking questions, learning more about the team and team building and everything else. It's like scheduling a training. You're scheduling a particular topic. We're going to talk about difficult conversations. Okay, don't start talking about polar bear habits in the Antarctic then. We need to stay focused on difficult conversations. We're doing a team building topic. Perfect. Let's not dig into IT security. Let's really focus our energy on team building. Same thing for me. I think it is really important to have the human element and the connection piece built into those meetings. If there's an outcome and a focus point and a purpose, making sure that there's still a humanity in there, that's an easy thing to do. So I'm in a 100% agreement, and forgive me for having to step away there. Yeah, go ahead, Francesca.
Well, and thank you for sharing that, Jake, 'cause it just sparked a thought for me of like different questions that we can maybe ask as a facilitator of the meeting. Different things like who's like observing in the meeting, like who's energized here, who's depleted, or like are we matching roles to behavior or just titles? Like that can be a factor. Or maybe asking ourselves like where is some misalignment be creating friction or burnout in the meeting? Because that can also be identified, bringing a little bit of our water forward to kind of maybe observe some of that. Um, I don't know. I think that I don't know how you both handle this, but for me, I love to bring my behavior element of the water forward to use that discernment in the meeting, kind of look where people's eyes are going. Are they looking down? Are they fidgeting? That's where I kind of go, okay, how's everyone feeling? We're 30 minutes in. We've covered X, Y, and Z. Are we good for today? Do we want to table everything else into an email, or do we feel comfortable to keep going? Or even just taking a quick 2-minute break, get up, get coffees, come back, whether it's digital or in person, but really reading the room because this is where we can bring our elements forward. Like I think one of our topics today is reading the room. If we can use that and bring that to the full, I think that that's where a superpower comes in. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I'll dig in on that in a second. Terry, go ahead. I'll let you.
I think you make an excellent point and didn't name it as plainly as you could, and it's the pause. We don't breathe enough. And I don't mean like physically using our lungs and our capacity, but I mean just to step back and really understand. Did we exhaust this conversation? Are we clear on next steps and who's doing what? Right? So we can put a little bow on everything. And part of the reason in my mind meetings fail is because we don't tidy them up well enough. We make a lot of assumptions. We rush through them because everybody's got to get back to their whatever they were doing before. And we just keep moving like, oh, it's no big deal. And then 6 weeks later, we're like, hey, didn't so and so say they were going to do this thing at this one time? That pause, that clarity, that getting everybody on the same page, section by section. And I read some of the comments in here. Dude, stop going to meetings that don't have an agenda. Like, you need to come up with a corporate policy that we are all effectively excused from meetings that do not have a clear agenda with a defined outcome.
I told you I
Mhm.
will reject meetings. I don't care who it is. I will reject a meeting that does not have a purpose or an outcome and who needs to be there. Like those are my, even if it's not a structured full agenda, purpose, outcomes, who needs to be there, and like what role that person's going to play, or I'm not coming. Like it's just not going to happen. Um, I, I as I'm thinking about this and the pause, and I love the temperature check that you're talking about, because basically what you're doing is, and again, I can go back to Robert's Rules of Order if I really wanted to. This is the like point of privilege, and being, yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like, hey, how are we doing? Is the temperature okay in here? Is the energy okay? Do we need a 5 minute recess? Do we need to push through this or whatever it is? But yeah, pausing, asking the question, aligning, keeping everybody sort of in that comfort space, I think is really powerful. Um, I want to address Caitlin, and I know it's going to sound funny, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, both of you. Caitlin and Mandy both had a question. Caitlin's was when the same person won't stop talking, and Mandy's is how do you address a team member that comes to you after the fact with additional concerns or anything else like that. I think there's two pieces here that I think can be kind of clever when approaching those types of topics. One is role setting. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but like um, one of the things that like if you're a JCI member, you've probably heard it, the sergeant at arms, or if you're in politics, you've probably heard it, the sergeant at arms. The sergeant at arms's job is to keep order inside of the meeting. Doing this in a fun way is, I think, a more soft touch approach. But like having Terry, today you're the sergeant at arms. Your job is to make sure that nobody talks more than 30 seconds before allowing somebody else to speak, right? So doing something of that nature. Assigning somebody to a role of the voice. What is their job? Their job is to see who's engaging, who's participating, who's asking questions, and to track that information. Assigning somebody the note taker, assigning somebody the blank. I think roles in a meeting can be really powerful for helping people to, number one, dial in, and helping people, number two, step into creating the conditions for culture or rules or structure to the meeting, even if the chair is not able to do that. And that's kind of commenting towards Judy's comment too. But one of the other things is assigning a devil's advocate. Hey, everybody might be in favor of this. We need somebody to play devil's advocate, because that person that has concerns on the questions or anything else, I'm just being the devil's advocate in this place and testing the idea. But I think roles are an underutilized function inside of meetings. What are your thoughts on that?
Go ahead.
I think the devil's advocate playing that role in any scenario is worthwhile. Listen, the more we can stress test our own thought processes and look at things from different angles, the better outcomes and results we create. So often we arrive at something that seems like a valuable answer, and we're like, Eureka, we're done, and never dig any deeper into it. Like that's step one. Move through, move deeper, move past, and then find where the actual gold is. So I like your idea of playing roles. I like the idea of that making it more engaged. And oh, by the way, it is opposed to being one of the You said there were 60 people in the room and six of them spoke and it cost $11,000. If some of those other 60 people had a role in the meeting, like we care and are concerned about things that we actually get to participate in when it has some level of meaning for us, that's a great way to increase overall meeting satisfaction, even if you didn't even get the devil's advocate.
Agreed.
Well
Francesca,
said.
your thoughts?
Well, and it's funny that you say that about assigning the role of a devil's advocate. I know in the real estate world, development role, you don't have to assign that role. If you have a meeting of 20 people, there's a lot of skeptics. We don't have to assign that role. It's more like, wow, this is really going in a negative direction. So
I've been
what
in
even
those
more so,
meetings too.
right? So, and I appreciated it because, you have every angle and every possible, scenario that could happen. One of the things that I have been assigned to in the past, whether it be Lululemon or in my director role, and even in real estate, especially I mean, we never named it as, oh, you have high water. It was just, hey, Francesca, you're highly empathetic. You're really intuitive. Can you please be the one that's discerning? If there's any uncomfortabilities, observe any behavior, and then bring that back to us of what you observe when certain things are brought up. So that was kind of my silent role at times, and other times my fire would lead, and I was the one conducting the meeting. If we can have someone, of course, the devil's advocate's great, but if we can have someone that's high water, kind of just being that intuition in the room of maybe silently communicating. It looks as though Shelby really wants to say something, but she's not communicating her needs. It looks like there's some tension between X, Y, and Z, between this and this person. There can be some really great value that can come from that too, even though it might be a little bit of a peculiar role to assign. But sometimes that's the big ticket. I don't know what you both think about that, but
I want to jump in on that. And we have a number of comments. I want to make sure that we're addressing all of those before we run out of time here. But here's the interesting thing. You naturally are empathetic and intuitive, and that makes a ton of sense to ask you to be able to fulfill that role. But this is where I think role strategy can be a game changer. If I've got somebody that's disruptive in a meeting, I'm going to probably assign them a role where they're not something like what you just said. Hey, I want you watching everybody, really paying attention to body language, really doing this. Because what is that going to do? That's going to keep their mind focused on everybody else in the meeting rather than being contrarian.
Mhm.
Or if I see somebody who's highly empathetic, and maybe this goes back to Mandy's point, maybe there's that person in a room that doesn't feel comfortable speaking up in the room. Maybe they're introverted. Maybe they need time to think on it. That might be the person that I'm going to assign the devil's advocate role to, completely out of their normal, but asking them to step into it. And I know that, with you two being on the BE Guide Academy that we do, when we've asked Natalie to step into a fire role, she crushes it, even though
Mhm.
she's really super high water. It's out of her scope, but she's like, wow, that really kind of felt good because I could just play this role. And I was asked to play this role because it's safe. And I think that that's where we're getting to is like the use of these roles can be very, very strategic. So couple of things here, and I want to address Judy's volunteer meetings. We've all worked in volunteer spaces at different points in times, worked with nonprofits, probably all facilitated hundreds of meetings with those spaces. Um, Obviously, we've probably seen some where, yeah, there is no structure, there is no anything else like that. If you were to be able to give Judy advice of how can you maybe bring that structure to those spaces, even if the chair of the meeting's not doing it. What are your thoughts, team?
I think the leadership role is can be flexible. And what I mean there, if something is likely to not feel right to you, and again, using some of the empathy or intuition that Francesca might have, but that we all actually do have, if you look around and see that other people are feeling the same kind of way you are, I don't think it's a problem for you to stand up, not necessarily physically stand up, but to stand up and say the thing that people are feeling and sensing. In fact, I would argue, and this is why I'm not a corporate guy, but I would argue that it's almost your moral imperative to do so.
Mhm.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Francesca?
Kind of in regards to time, I'm just going to say I echoed Terry's statement. I have nothing to add to that. Spot
Plus
on.
one.
Yep, +1.
You know what? I'm going to plus one and two. Take the
Yep.
lead. And I'll share a story. When I was the deputy president of an organization, one of my dear friends was the president and was struggling to kind of keep control of the meetings. And it was literally me just sitting down and saying, "Hey, here's three things that I think that we can do that's going to make the next meeting one step better." And when that worked, he was like, "Oh my God, let's do more. What else can we do?" And we started to build from there. So I think taking that step into leadership can be super powerful. Let's look at Cheryl. Indicated in the meeting topic, there's a big issue, there's an elephant in the room, it's not being addressed. Francesca, do you want to take this one? How would you handle that?
An elephant in the room that's not being addressed.
Yep.
Something as simple as two different ways it can happen is to say in the meeting, there is what did we used to call it? It was like a big rock or like the big
The big issue or
issue, but I think we used to call it like a big rock, but whatever you want to call that. If you want to say, hey, we have an elephant. I'm going to be sending a follow-up email. I'd love each of your opinion on how we can best solve that. If someone says, can you please address what that big issue, what that big elephant is? We have an issue with X, Y, and Z. Awesome. Everyone can put in the chat what their thoughts are, and it's like a nice quick fire. But the other way to do that is if you can, before the meeting, outline that in your rose and thorn. Here's the win, but my big elephant is X, Y, and Z. Um, the tough part is bringing that up at the end of a meeting could have that spiral if you're not all aligned to get everyone out the door. So that's where I might just say, there's an issue that I want to address. I'll be sending an email and follow up. If there's a good time for us to do a scheduled meeting, let's design that and what our outcomes can be on that. But if not, it can spiral really fast. I don't know about what you think, what your thoughts are, but that's my experience with that, unfortunately.
yeah. Plus one. Sometimes we avoid the difficult issues, and it does require somebody to just step in and say, "Hey, gently, I want to make sure that we're addressing the elephant in the room." So I'm aligned with that for sure. All right, Charmaine. Here's one for you, and I'm going to take this one on. The question: sitting through a meeting that I have to support but don't report out or have input. If you don't show up, it shows you're not being supportive. The marketing division of my company, they meet every Monday. I'm the CEO. I do not do anything in the marketing division. At least twice a month, I show up, first 5 minutes of the meeting. Hey, team, super excited. Saw all these great things that are happening. Just want you to know that I'm here to support you. Does anybody have any questions for me before I move back into my other roles? Because we all have kind of come to the conclusion that time is really important. The other thing that happens is they use AI to summarize, come up with the objectives, the outcomes, and all of those things. I will send something following up saying, once I'm able to see that, I read that in 3 to 5 minutes. I'm able to follow up and say, super proud of you for doing X, Y, and Z. So I'm showing support in different ways, but not spending 55 extra minutes of my time to just sit in a meeting that I have no business being in. That takes a little time to implement. So there's two tactics there is one, showing how you can support, two, utilizing something like Otter AI or Read AI to get who does what by when at the end of the meeting, and then showing support for that or resources for that or care and love for that. I think that's two ways that you might be able to do that. Caitlin said identifying tasks after the meeting. I think I covered that actually with who does what by when. That is the end of every single meeting. Hey, who's taking responsibility for the outcomes because they're clearly defined? Who's taking responsibility? What are they taking responsibility for? And when is it due? And those three things I think will get you there. Let's cover, so we covered a little bit of Beth's. Cheryl, yeah, even if it's not a rejection, even if it's just a gentle pushback, I think it's important to say, hey, what's the outcome or what's the agenda or what are we trying to accomplish with this meeting? So that could be a coaching conversation, even if it's not the savage rejection that I like to do.
And that can be public or private, just to be clear. And the more public you make it, the more you start to build habits in other people because now they're like, ooh, yeah, that's kind of spicy. We better put this some thought into this before we get people together.
All right, let's hit the last one that I don't think that we covered specifically, and I'm throwing it to either Terry or Francesca, or if you both have a quick one, the meetings after the meetings.
My answer is just no.
That's a boundary.
Have a boundary. Yeah. Thank
That's
you.
me. That's me
Last
too.
one. Yeah. I'm
Hey,
just
this would have been really good information to come up in our meeting. I'm not going to spend more time talking about this. In the next meeting, I'd love for you to bring this up.
yeah.
Or if you'd like to schedule a meeting to have this amongst the team, let's do that. But I agree, that is a straight boundary to hold on to. Terry, any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
All right. We are nearing the end of our time. Francesca, you had some just quick tactics, quick tips for each of the elements. Can you run through those and share those with us as we close out our session here today?
Happy to, Jay. Absolutely. Yeah, I had made some notes on how each element reads the room, so I thought this might be valuable for the audience. If you are a fire in the audience, a drive to acquire, reading the room, there's going to be some things in terms of noticing momentum, some urgency, pace. You're going to be scanning for progress, outcomes, wins, but picking up on a little bit of impatience, some stalled energy. And one of the things to under stress is we're going to misread hesitation as resistance, even though that may be a little bit misguided. And some common blind spots I think that we can be aware of is assuming clarity equals alignment. So a question that we can ask as fires, and I need to do this more often, is the room ready to move or do we need alignment first? Will be a huge part for us as fires. As waters, a drive to bond in terms of reading the room, noticing emotional tone, tension, and safety, like we mentioned earlier. We're going to pick up on like any unspoken dynamics, some micro expressions, reading for like whoever feels included or excluded or withdrawn. But under stress, the one thing is that we're going to absorb emotions rather than observing them. That's a huge thing that I am at fault for. And a common blind spot that I've been at fault for as well is feeling responsible for others' emotions in the meetings. So the best question as a water that we can ask is what am I sensing and what is actually mine to carry, especially for the one facilitating the meeting. If you have a drive to learn with air, in terms of reading the room, of course, we're going to notice any confusion, idea flow, kind of having any resistance there, picking up on conceptual engagement or mental overload. But we're going to be a little bit sensitive to like intellectual tension. And under stress, we have to be really careful to not overanalyze or detach. And some common blind spots that we can notice too is just some misses in emotional undercurrents. And the best question that we can ask as heirs is, do we need more clarity or does this actually or is this actually emotional resistance? So kind of a little bit in that direction. And as an earth, the drive to defend, we're going to obviously notice the stability system restraint, anything like that. A common blind spot is going to be mistakes, discomfort for danger, and under stress, it's going to be tightens control or resist change. So just a question that we can ask is what feels unsafe here, and is it real or is it perceived? We're at the 1 minute mark, so I'm throwing the baton back to Jay.
I'm going to kick it over to Terry. Terry, final thoughts for today?
Meetings suck. Figure out how to make them suck less.
Thank you.
+1 to both of those comments.
Amen.
And I just want to take a minute to thank our audience for being here, being so dialed in, the great questions. If your questions weren't answered, reach out to us. Let us know. All of us have been paid to do meeting facilitations for organizations. This is something that we know is important. So if you need support, do not hesitate to reach out. We're here for you. And I just want to say thank you to Terry and Francesca. I always love these conversations. I feel so energized, like walking away from them and getting new ideas to implement into our practices. So thank you, team. Thank you, audience. Until next time, be safe, be healthy, be well. And we'll look forward to seeing you next month when we come back together for the Lunch and Learns. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.